I told us a while back when I was pregnant with my first child. Before then, we had already waited on God for 7 years, believing him for babies. And when I took him with my first child, when I went for the first ultrasound, I remember the first time they called me and said, "You're pregnant," like from the clinic. I was at work. I actually fell on my knees because I had never been pregnant before in my life. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, oh my God, like, oh my God, you've done it. So I went for my very first scan. Because we had so much challenges getting pregnant, I had to go in for a scan. And we did the scan, and they're like, "Oh, there are 2 babies there." I was like, wow, twins, awesome. And then 9 weeks into it, I started bleeding. I was at work and I started to bleed. I remember at that time I worked at NYU and I worked on the 16th floor. I left my floor and I went all the way to the basement and I wept. Because I said, "God, I have never been pregnant one day in my life. And then now you do it and I'm bleeding? How can I be bleeding?" I called my doctor and I said, "This is what's going on." She was like, "Just leave work right away and come into the office." I'm sitting on the bus, I'm sitting on the train. People don't know what I'm going through, but I was stressing out because I didn't know what to do with this. But you know the funny thing? Weeks before, maybe months before, I don't even know anymore when the dream came, but I had a dream that I was heavily pregnant and I was getting an ultrasound done. And this was even before I took in or before I knew I was pregnant. I was having an ultrasound done and there were 2 women that were doing the ultrasound scan and I could see the monitor very clearly. And for every time they would scan me, they would say, "Oh, she's carrying a boy." But when I look at the monitor, I can see a boy and a girl. But the girl was laying underneath the boy. So they couldn't see her. Every time they turned the probe to the right, the boy would twist himself to the right to cover the sister. And they couldn't see. After they scanned for a while, they said, "Oh, it's a boy." And they stopped the scan. And I woke up from the dream. I didn't even know what it meant. So when I'm sitting on the train and I'm coming back and I'm just like so devastated and I'm just saying, "God, like, what is going on? Why did this happen?" He reminded me of the dream. He said, "Remember the dream I showed you?" I was like, yes. It was like, there were 2 babies there, right? I'm like, yes. He said, I planted the boy in your womb as a distraction to the enemy. I never intended to give you the boy. The girl is the seed I intended for you in this time. But the enemy wanted blood. I have given them blood. He said, "Don't worry. Everything is fine." I got to the doctor. And they did the Doppler, and they're like, "We can still hear a heartbeat. The baby's here. We can hear a heartbeat. We need you to go for an ultrasound." I went for an ultrasound, and they said, "Oh, one of the babies did not make it, but the other one is fine." And I said, "Lord, who is there like unto you? You knew that the enemy will monitor. You knew they would try to tamper with what you had done and what you had given me. So you planted another child there as a distraction to the wicked." In the dream, the girl was Deborah. And whomever this other child was, God just put there so that the enemy will not spot her. And they would think because they had destroyed that male seed, they had accomplished their purpose. But they did not understand that we serve a God that is able to do any and all things. A God that can use any method, any means, any way to give you what he wants. Sometimes it may look as if the enemy is having the upper hand. But I promise you that if you put your trust in the Lord, the enemy will never overcome.